Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are glad to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
Usually when we sit down to talk about politics, we are looking at the nuts and bolts of legislation, right?
Or we're dissecting some gaffe on the campaign trail.
Exactly. Something that will probably be completely forgotten in, 48 hours?
If that.
Yeah.
The news cycle moves so fast.
But today, we are zooming way, way out. We are looking at something much more pervasive, much quieter, and honestly a lot more interesting than the daily horse race.
It's one of those topics that once you see it, you really can't unsee it.
Yeah, it changes how you look at everything.
We're asking a pretty fundamental question today. What happens when political figures stop just running for office and start running production studios?
Right. And we aren't talking about, writing a memoir after you leave the White House. That's been done.
That's the old playbook.
And we aren't even talking about giving speeches for huge fees at corporate retreats. We're talking about becoming a media mogul.
We are witnessing the rise of what some of the analysts in our source material are calling the cinematic presidency.
The cinematic presidency. I like that.
It's this idea that to maintain true influence in the modern world, where, attention spans are just shot and content is king, you can't just rely on press conferences.
No.
You need to control the narrative at the source. You need to be the one commissioning the script.
You need to be the studio head. And to really, really understand this shift, we are doing a deep dive today into Higher Ground Productions.
Which, as I think most people know by now, the production company founded by Barack and Michelle Obama.
Exactly. And I think for a lot of people, and I'll include myself in this, you see Higher Ground flash across the screen on Netflix before a movie starts, or maybe you see it on the spine of a book and you think, oh, neat, the Obamas made this. Yeah. It feels like a retirement hobby.
A very high-profile hobby, but a hobby nonetheless.
But our stack of sources today suggests it is so much more than just a creative outlet for a retired president.
Oh, it's a calculated, massive strategic operation.
And the sources we're looking at today, we have this really dense, fascinating report on the industrialization of narrative control.
Which is a mouthful.
It is, but it's good. And we have several financial breakdowns of these big media deals, and they all paint a picture of a company that functions not just as an entertainment venture, but as a strategic tool.
A tool for what, though? That's the real question.
Well, you tell me.
For maintaining cultural hegemony.
Cultural hegemony. Okay, that's a big phrase to drop in the first 2 minutes.
I know. But it fits, though. It really does. If you look at their mission statement, which we pulled from the company profile, they say they want to lift up diverse voices and tell great stories.
Which sounds lovely. Who can argue with that?
And on the surface, it is lovely. But if you dig into what one of our sources calls the political economy of influence, you see that this is about merging entertainment, activism, and governance into one seamless product.
So we aren't just watching movies.
We are watching a new form of soft power.
And it's soft power that we invite into our homes on a Friday night.
Precisely. It's about shaping the way the electorate, or maybe we should say the audience, because are those terms even different anymore?
Yeah.
Sees the world.
That's a good point. The audience and the electorate are becoming one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we have a massive amount to unpack here. We're going to cover everything from their Oscar-winning documentaries about labor rights to, and I love this, children's shows that look like fun puppet adventures but are secretly about public health policy.
And we are definitely going to pivot to the fiction side of things, which gets surprisingly dark.
It does. And because we have to look at the whole landscape, we are going to compare this strategy directly to the news surrounding Melania Trump's recent $75 million documentary project.
Which, when you put them side by side, it creates a really stark contrast to strategies. One is an ecosystem, the other is a blockbuster transaction.
It really does. But okay, let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about the architecture of Higher Ground itself. This wasn't just a let's make a movie whim, was it?
Not even close.
Yeah.
This was established in May 2018.
Okay, 2018. Let's think about the timing on that.
Right. That is very shortly after leaving the White House. The ink was barely dry on the exit papers.
So this was planned. This was part of the post-presidency strategy from day one.
It had to be.
Yeah.
And the foundation of this company, the core of it, is a multi-year deal with Netflix. That is the central partnership.
They also had that deal with Spotify initially, right? For the podcast.
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
That has since shifted over to Audible, but Netflix is the anchor. That's the visual component that's reaching hundreds of millions of homes globally.
And Michelle Obama had this quote when they launched, which I think is really, really telling. She said, I have always believed in the power of storytelling to inspire us, to make us think differently about the world around us.
Make us think differently about the world. I want you to just hold on to that phrase.
Okay.
Because typically, when a politician leaves office, the playbook is very standard. It's set in stone. You write the book to cement your legacy.
You build the presidential library.
You start a foundation to do some good works, maybe some global health initiatives.
It's a passive form of influence, really. It's all about looking back.
Exactly. But the sources we've read describe what the Obamas did as a paradigm shift.
A paradigm shift.
Yeah. They realized that to remain relevant in the 2020s and beyond, you can't just be a statesman. You have to be a content creator.
And it seems like, specifically, you have to bypass the filters.
That is the absolute key mechanism. Think about the traditional filters a politician has to go through. If you want to get a message out, historically, what do?
You go to the press. You call a press conference. You do an interview with a journalist.
And that journalist has their own agenda, right? They edit your quotes. They add context you might not like. They challenge you on certain points.
You're completely at the mercy of the editor of the news outlet.
But with Higher Ground, they are bypassing traditional journalistic filters entirely. Instead of a press conference, they release a film. One of our sources explicitly says it leverages their global fame to sidestep the system. It's a direct, unfiltered line to the consumer.
It's pure messaging, but it's packaged as entertainment, so our guard is completely down.
Exactly right. When you turn on the news, your critical brain is on. You're looking for bias. You're fact-checking in your head. When you fire up Netflix on a Friday night with a glass of wine and a bowl of popcorn, your guard is down.
Yeah.
You're just absorbing the story.
And it is worth noting, this isn't just them sitting in a room with a camera. The leadership team they assembled here is serious.
Oh, it's a fully professionalized operation. We're not talking about a vanity project where they just slap their names on a few things.
No.
They brought in absolute heavy hitters. Priya Swaminathan and Tonya Davis were appointed as co-heads right at the beginning.
Okay.
Then they have Kadriya Kushamsi Dean as a creative executive.
And these are people with deep, deep resumes in Hollywood. They're not political operatives.
They are industry pros. And that distinction is so important because it signals to the market and to us, the audience, that this is premium content.
Right.
It's not political content. It's content that happens to be produced by politicians. There's a subtle but massive difference.
Because if the production value was low, if it looked like a glorified campaign ad, nobody would watch it on Netflix.
It would get buried. It has to compete with Stranger Things and The Crown.
It has to be good.
It has to be good on its own terms.
And the reach they have is just incredible. You mentioned the platform strategy. They aren't just relying on one medium, are they?
No, it's a whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
You have the visual side with Netflix, which is the behemoth. Then you have the audio side.
Right, the podcasts.
They started with Spotify, where the Michelle Obama podcast was just a massive, massive hit.
I remember that. It was #1 everywhere.
So according to the sources, it was the biggest Spotify original in history at the time of its release.
Which is just wild to think about. A former first lady having the #1 podcast in the world.
Bigger than Joe Rogan, at least for a while. And now they've moved that audio arm over to Audible as of June 2022.
So they have Amazon in their corner now, too.
Exactly. Plus, and this is key, just recently, in June 2024, they extended that Netflix deal. So this isn't winding down. This is ramping up.
The source material calls this a perennial media infrastructure.
Perennial. I love that word here.
Meaning always on.
Right. A political campaign has an end date. There's a finish line. Election day comes. You win or you lose, and it's over.
The confetti falls, the balloons drop, and you go home.
Exactly. But this is an always-on engagement strategy.
Right.
It keeps the Obamas in your living room, in your earbuds, constantly relevant, constantly shaping the conversation year after year after year.
It's like having a fast pass to the cultural conversation.
That is a perfect analogy. While other politicians are out there fighting for airtime on cable news, trying to get a 3-minute segment on CNN, Higher Ground is dropping a documentary that millions of people watch on a Friday night simply because it popped up on their recommended for you list.
The algorithm is doing the work for them.
The algorithm is the new campaign manager.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about what they are actually putting on that list, because the content itself is fascinating when you view it through this lens of narrative control.
Yeah.
It's not just random movies. There is a very clear pattern. Let's start with the documentaries.
The nonfiction slate. This is arguably where the political values are most visible, but again, it's subtle. It's what our sources would call soft power.
Right. Okay, case study #1 has to be American Factory.
Of course. American Factory. Released in 2019. This was their very first film release right out of the gate.
And it won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature.
Which, frankly, validates the entire experiment from the jump.
It gives them instant artistic credibility. It's not just the Obamas movie. It's the Oscar-winning film from higher ground.
Totally. Now, on the surface, if you haven't seen it, this is a documentary about a culture clash. You have a closed General Motors plant in post-industrial Ohio.
A classic Rust Belt story.
Exactly. It gets bought by a Chinese company, Fuyao Glass.
Yeah.
So you have all these blue-collar American workers trying to adapt to Chinese management styles.
It's a great film. I mean, just as a film, it's compelling, it's heartbreaking at times. But what's the message? What's the takeaway from a strategic standpoint?
Well, the sources analyze this as a very specific choice for their first project. First, it supports unionized labor. That is a core Democratic Party value. The whole film hinges on a unionization vote.
Okay.
Second, it paints a very nuanced, very sympathetic picture of industrial decline in the Midwest, which is, of course, a key political battleground.
The Rust Belt, the states that can swing an election.
The very same. But, and this is the absolute genius of it, it addresses labor rights without ever feeling like a campaign ad.
Right.
It doesn't feature Barack Obama in a suit lecturing you about the importance of unions.
It doesn't say vote Democrat at the end.
Not at all. It just says, look at the human cost of globalization. Look at the dignity of work. Look at the struggle of these specific people. It connects to the bigger picture of the Obama's political values, their entire worldview regarding the working class, but it does it through art, not through rhetoric.
It validates their policy achievements and their worldview without explicitly debating them.
That's brilliant.
And then you have Crip Camp.
Crip Camp. Another incredibly powerful example. This one focuses on a summer camp in the Catskills back in the 70s. It was called Camp Gent.
Right.
And it essentially incubated the disability rights movement. Many of the teenagers who went to this camp, who found a sense of community and power there for the first time, went on to become the leaders who fought for the ADA.
The Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yep. And the sources describe this film as empowering and aligning perfectly with the mission to highlight marginalized communities.
So again, it's pure advocacy for social justice.
It is. But it's framed as this nostalgia-tinged, incredibly inspiring human interest story. It's about friendship and summer camp and first loves and youth.
But the political takeaway is activism works. Civil rights legislation matters.
Which are, again, things the Obama brand is heavily, heavily tied to. It reinforces the value of their style of politics, community organizing, legislative change, but it does it through an emotional narrative that makes you cry rather than a dense white paper that makes you fall asleep.
Okay, but then there is Becoming. And this one is different. This is where the sources suggest things get a little more, let's say, self-referential.
Becoming is a different beast entirely. It was released in 2020. And as the title suggests, this is a documentary following Michelle Obama on her book tour for her memoir, Becoming.
And calling it a book tour is almost underselling it. This was a stadium tour.
It was a rock star tour.
Yeah.
She went to 34 cities, selling out arenas, and the film tracks that journey.
So what's the critique here?
Well, the critique from some of our sources, specifically that Industrialization of Narrative Control report, is that this film was essentially a commercial for the former First Family.
One source even called it an extended sales pitch.
Right. And they noted that it presented a very manicured and apotheosized version of Michelle Obama.
Apotheosized. That is a GRE word if I've ever heard one.
It means elevated to divine status, like treated as a god.
Wow, okay.
And if you watch the film, you can kind of see why they use that word. The lighting, the slow motion shots, the swelling music, the absolute adoration of the crowds.
It's brand maintenance.
It is pure brand maintenance. It solidifies her public identity as this unifying, deeply inspirational figure. It monetizes the memoir, yes, but strategically, it keeps her personal favorability ratings incredibly high.
It's a way of controlling your own biography.
That is the key. That's the whole ballgame right there. If you make the documentary about yourself, you decide what goes in and what stays out. You decide the framing. You're not sitting for a 60 minutes interview where they might ask about a policy failure or a past controversy.
You're not getting any tough questions.
None. You're releasing a beautiful, polished film about your inspirational journey, scored by a Grammy-winning composer.
That is the sidestepping the filters part we talked about, but taken to its logical extreme.
Completely. It is the ultimate form of image control.
So we have the documentaries, which cover labor, disability, and personal branding. But here's where it gets really interesting to me. They didn't just stop at nonfiction.
No.
They moved into scripted content and this is my favorite part, children's programming.
This is the pivot that really solidifies the industrialization aspect of this whole thing.
How so?
Because if you want to reshape culture, you can't just preach to the choir. You can't only make things for people who already watch serious documentaries about labor unions.
You have to reach different demographics.
You have to reach the kids. You have to reach people who just want to watch a thriller on a Saturday night.
Okay, let's talk about the G word. This one kind of blew my mind a little bit when I started reading about the premise.
The G Word with Adam Conover. This premiered in May 2022. It's a hybrid comedy documentary series.
Hosted by Adam Conover, who is known for his show, Adam Ruins Everything.
Right. He has a very specific brand of educational comedy. Now, the source material for this show is Michael Lewis's book, The Fifth Risk.
Which is a fantastic book, by the way. But it's largely about the chaotic transition from the Obama administration to the Trump administration.
It is. It's about how the new team didn't seem to understand what all the various government agencies actually did and the risks that that created.
A pretty serious topic.
Very serious. But the show takes a slightly different tack. It adapts that material into a comedy format. The strategic objective, as stated explicitly in our sources, is to reframe the government.
Reframe it how? From what to what?
Well, think about the prevailing narrative in America for the last 40 years, really since Reagan, right? Government is the problem.
Drain the swamp. Bureaucracy is bloated and incompetent.
The famous line, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help," is supposed to be the scariest sentence in the English language.
Right.
The G word tries to completely flip that on its head. It tries to change the narrative to government is the solution. Or at least, government is a vital tool for good.
And how does it do that?
It highlights the heroic staffing of the bureaucracy. It takes you inside these agencies and shows you the work of the meat inspectors, the weather forecasters, the air traffic controllers, the people who actually make the country run every single day.
So it's a civics lesson disguised as a comedy show.
It is soft propaganda for the administrative state. And I use propaganda in the most neutral sense of the word, which is just propagating a specific worldview.
A worldview that says the federal government is cool, or at least appreciated.
Yes, to a generation that's grown up being incredibly cynical about all institutions.
That is a heavy lift for a comedy show.
It is. But if you are a former president who believes deeply in the power of government to improve lives, I mean, that is your legacy, the ACA, etc., what better way to convince people than a funny show that makes government workers look like unsung heroes?
It's brilliant, really. Instead of giving a dry speech about the importance of the USDA, you make a funny segment about it.
You entertain people into agreeing with you.
And then we have the puppets.
We have to talk about the puppets.
Waffles plus Mochi.
Yes.
I have to say, seeing former First Lady Michelle Obama as a friendly shopkeeper with a talking puppet named Waffles, that was not on my 2021 bingo card.
It's incredibly surreal, isn't it? But again, let's look at what it's actually doing. It is ostensibly a kid's show about food.
Mm-hmm.
Waffles and Mochi, these two puppets, they travel the world in a magic shopping cart. They learn about different ingredients, like potatoes and tomatoes and mushrooms.
It's very cute. My kids loved it. But deep down, it is rooted in public health policy.
100%. It's the Let's Move initiative. It's the Listen to Your Vegetables campaign from her time as First Lady, but now it's a global Netflix show.
It's the White House Garden, but for a new generation.
Exactly. In fact, one of the sources we have notes that the working title for the show was literally Listen to Your Vegetables and Eat Your Parents.
Ah, I'm glad they changed that last part. That's a little dark.
A little dark for preschoolers, yeah. It features guests like Tan France from Queer Eye.
I think he played a talking potato, if I remember correctly.
As one does. It's hip. It's fun. But it's teaching nutritional literacy. It's policy work, packaged as entertainment for preschoolers.
It's shaping the habits of the next generation of voters, or at least citizens, before they can even read a ballot.
That is playing the long game in the most literal sense I can imagine.
It's incredible. And then from the bright, colorful world of puppets, you have the shift to straight-up fiction with Leave the World Behind.
And what a shift it is.
This was the big one recently. Julia Roberts, Mahershala Ali, Ethan Hawke, a massive apocalyptic thriller.
Released on Netflix in late 2023, executive produced by the Obamas. And this one generated a ton of online discussion.
Oh, yeah.
The source material notes that people were really questioning the message behind a former president and first lady producing a film about the total collapse of U.S. infrastructure and rampant civil strife.
The plot is basically that a massive cyber attack happens, satellites go down, the internet is gone, and society just crumbles within days.
Yeah. Neighbors turn on neighbors. It's incredibly bleak.
It is very bleak. And unlike the G word, which says government is good and it can help, this film asks, what happens when the government can't save you?
It's a warning. It tackles themes of national security collapse, our over-reliance on technology, and social cohesion breaking down.
It feels like, well, if the G word is the carrot, promoting the good side of the state, leave the world behind is the stick.
That's a really valid interpretation. It's raising awareness of vulnerabilities that a former president would know intimately.
He read the daily intelligence briefings. He knows exactly how fragile the grid is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now he's using a blockbuster movie starring Julia Roberts to tell the rest of us about it in a way that a white paper from a think tank never could.
And they aren't slowing down at all. Our sources list a bunch of upcoming projects, too. What's on the slate?
Well, there's The Altruists, which is a drama about the collapse of FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried.
Wow. Okay. So they are tackling very modern, very messy financial scandals.
Right. It shows a willingness to engage with very current events. Then there is Exit West, which is based on a fantastic novel. It's set to star Riz Ahmed.
And that one addresses the global migration and refugee crisis.
It does, but through a kind of sci-fantasy lens. So again, a core political issue, immigration, being explored through genre storytelling.
Which makes it more palatable to a broader audience.
And there's also Tenzing, a film focused on Tenzing Norgay, the Sherpa, who summited Mount Everest with Sir Edmund Hillary.
Highlighting unsung heroes, right?
Exactly. A diverse voice who was historically overshadowed by his white counterpart. It fits their stated mission statement perfectly.
So we have this massive, diversified media machine. Documentaries, comedies, kids shows, thrillers. But to really understand the scale and the strategy of it, I think we have to compare it to what is happening on the other side of the aisle.
Yes.
Because the sources mention a very, very interesting development with Melania Trump.
This is the comparative analysis section of our deep dive, and it is genuinely illuminating. We're seeing a cinematic First Lady phenomenon emerge across the board, but the strategies are polar opposites.
So Melania has a documentary that came out in early 2026 called Simply Melania.
Correct. Now, just look at the numbers here because they tell a story. Amazon MGM Studios paid a $40 million license fee for this film.
$40 million? For a documentary license.
40, plus they committed another $35 million marketing budget.
So that is a $75 million total spend for a single documentary.
It is astronomical. The sources note that documentaries almost never, ever command that kind of money. It's a blockbuster approach. It's superhero movie money.
And Melania Trump herself, what was her take?
She was paid $28 million directly for her participation.
$28 million. That is a lottery win.
It is. Now, compare that to the Obama strategy. The Obamas have a long-term institutional deal with Netflix. We don't know the exact dollar amount per project because it's a bundled deal, but it's about building an ecosystem, a library.
Right.
Melania's deal is a specific, high-cost, high-impact transaction.
It feels like the Obamas are building a media network and Melania is launching a single, high-end luxury product.
That's a perfect way to put it. The expert analysis in our sources calls the Obama strategy a diffuse strategy.
Yeah.
Many projects, diverse genres, spread out over a long period of time. It maintains cultural hegemony by being everywhere, softly. The Trump approach in this instance is what the sources call corporate reciprocity. It's a big, loud financial splash.
So how did it do, the Melania doc?
Well, the sources say it was pretty widely panned by critics. It apparently focused on a very specific and narrow 20-day window before the inauguration.
So not a comprehensive biography?
No. However, it had strong opening ticket sales, $7 million. So there is clearly an audience for it.
But here's the part of the report that really made me laugh. The moral victory campaign.
Yes, this is where it gets so meta. This highlights how these entertainment products are becoming direct proxies for political battles.
So what happened?
The sources mentioned that political opponents of the Trumps tried to counter the release of Melania by organizing a mass streaming of Becoming on Netflix.
They were trying to get Michelle Obama's documentary back to the #1 spot on the charts.
Right, it's a streaming war. My First Lady's documentary is more popular than your First Lady's documentary.
That's absurd.
It's completely absurd, but it shows that the audience understands these aren't just movies anymore. They were political flags to be waved.
It really is the industrialization of influence, which brings us perfectly to the so what of all this. Why does this matter? What's the bigger picture?
Okay, let's unpack this because this is where it all comes together. We've talked about the content, but the sources go into the broader ecosystem. They call it the political economy of mobilization.
We talked earlier about how higher ground sidesteps the system. One observation in the source material compares it to having a fast pass at a theme park, but for the entire culture.
And that's such a great analogy.
Yeah.
While everyone else is waiting in line to be heard, the activists, the local politicians, the independent artists, the writers, the Obamas just walk right to the front of the line because they have a Netflix deal.
They have the fast pass to your attention.
And the algorithm pushes them there.
But it's not just about the media deals themselves. HGP Higher Ground Productions. It operates in a landscape that is just defined by dark money and professionalized influence. The sources bring up the 1630 Fund.
This is the fund that's backed by Arabella Advisors, a major player in progressive funding.
Right.
And the sources say they have poured hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars into progressive causes. Now, to be clear, Higher Ground is a for-profit business. It's not a nonprofit.
But it aligns with this broader progressive ecosystem that is incredibly well-funded.
It's all part of the same machinery of influence, even if the parts are technically separate.
And on the flip side of that, when you look at the protest industry, the sources were shocking on the costs of activism now.
This is such an important piece of context to understand the alternative. If you want to influence the narrative from the bottom up, through protest on the streets, it is getting harder and more expensive.
So what are the numbers?
The sources cite a figure. It costs $8,400 just for a permit to protest in Manhattan.
$8,000 just for the piece of paper.
Just for the permit. That doesn't include the signs, the organization, the travel, the sound system.
Wow.
Then you have the concept of crowds for hire. The sources mention a company called Crowds on Demand and the whole world of paid agitators. The cost of dissent has gone way, way up.
So does that mean regular people are being priced out of having influence?
In a way, yes. Or at least organic influence is much harder to sustain and scale. Meanwhile, if you were at the level of the Obamas or the Trumps, you have this massive, well-funded machinery amplifying your voice 24/7.
There was also a note in the sources about security costs. They called it the Luigi effect.
Yes, which was named after a specific incident involving a healthcare executive. The takeaway is that the cost of high-level security for any public figure has skyrocketed.
So it creates another financial barrier to entry for political influence.
Absolutely. You have to be wealthy enough to be safe while you are being influential.
It paints a picture of a very gated world of influence.
It is. It's an industrialized complex. You have the high-level, higher ground, Netflix, Amazon, MGM, where the narrative is controlled from the top down through beautiful, polished entertainment.
And then you have the ground level of actual protest, which is increasingly regulated, expensive, and professionalized.
They're two sides of the same coin.
And the lines are just blurring everywhere. The sources mention government agencies themselves spending billions on advertising.
Yeah, the Department of Defense spending over $1 billion a year on recruitment ads. The Department of Health and Human Services spending millions on public health campaigns.
So the distinction between public service, advertising, and propaganda is becoming very, very difficult to discern.
It's almost impossible, especially when political values are packaged as entertainment, like we said with the G word. Is it education about civics? Or is it a commercial for the bureaucracy?
Or what about Melania's future projects? Her agent mentioned her new company, Muse Films, will focus on lifestyle content, fashion, wellness, that kind of thing.
Softening the image.
Yeah.
Building a brand outside of politics.
Exactly. If you're watching a cooking show or a wellness series hosted by a political figure, you're building a parasocial relationship with them. You're starting to like them, to trust them.
And that trust absolutely translates to political capital down the line.
So at the end of the day, what does this all mean for us, the listener, the viewer?
I think we have to realize that we aren't just audiences anymore. We are the electorate. And the campaign never, ever ends. It just moved to Netflix.
That is a slightly terrifying thought.
It's the reality of the media landscape we live in. Higher Ground has a clear three-pronged strategy, if we recap the whole thing.
Okay, let's do it.
1, the documentaries. They exist to validate past policy achievements. Look at what we did for labor. Look at what we did for disability rights. our worldview works.
Right. Prong 2.
Children's and scripted content. This is to shape future generations and reframe how we see fundamental institutions like government. Government is good, veggies are good, diverse stories are essential.
And prong 3.
Personal branding.
Yeah.
Becoming, the podcasts, all of it. This is to maintain the Obama brand itself and keep it associated with warmth, intelligence, and aspirational success.
It is an incredibly sophisticated machine.
It is. And it persists long after they leave the White House. That is the real aha moment for me from all this research.
Yeah.
The cinematic presidency ensures that cultural influence remains even when political office is gone. You can vote a president out, or they can hit their term limit.
Yeah.
But you can't vote them off Netflix.
That is a powerful thought. You can't term limit a producer credit.
You can't. And it raises a final provocative question for everyone listening. As we see this trend take hold, with more and more political figures creating their own content studios, bypassing the press, speaking directly to you through your TV screen, are we watching entertainment anymore?
Or are we watching a new form of governance?
Governance by streaming.
Wow.
A world where the audience is actually the electorate, and the subscription fee isn't money, it's your attention and your worldview.
Something to think about the next time you hit play.
Indeed.
That's it for this deep dive. We will catch you on the next one. Thanks for listening.
Stay curious.